Sometimes life finally becomes calm, nothing is wrong, no conflict, no urgency, no pressure, and yet something inside you feels uneasy. You start checking your phone for bad news. You feel strangely restless. You wait for something to go wrong. Peace should feel safe, but instead, it feels suspicious. If this happens to you, the problem might not be your present life. It might be the way your brain learned to survive the past. And strangely, the brain that once protected you may now be the reason calm feels dangerous. People who grow up around chaos develop a very specific internal rhythm. Your nervous system becomes trained for intensity. Raised voices, sudden problems, unpredictable moods, constant adjustments. Your brain learns to stay alert, not because it wants to, but because it had to. Over time, this creates something psychologists call hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is when the brain constantly scans for potential threats, even when there are none. So when life becomes calm, your brain doesn't relax. Instead, it begins searching for hidden tension, searching for what might break the peace. Because for many people who grew up in chaotic environments, calmness rarely lasted long. There was usually a moment before the next storm, a quiet house before an argument, a peaceful afternoon before something unexpected happened. So your brain started connecting two things: silence and incoming danger. This pattern becomes deeply embedded. You might notice it in everyday situations. You finish work early, and instead of relaxing, you feel uneasy. A relationship becomes stable, and suddenly you start doubting it. Life finally slows down, and your mind begins inventing problems. You might even tell yourself something feels off, but nothing is actually wrong. Your brain is simply doing what it learned long ago, preparing for the next disruption. And here is the difficult part. When your identity forms around managing chaos, peace can feel unfamiliar, and the human brain tends to distrust unfamiliar environments, which leads to a strange internal conflict. Part of you wants calm, another part of you doesn't fully believe it, and that quiet tension can shape the way you live your life. But here's the important question. Why does the brain keep doing this, even when the environment has changed? The answer sits deep inside the survival systems of the brain. Before we go deeper, something important needs to be clear. This pattern does not mean you are broken. In fact, it often means your brain did something very intelligent. Your mind adapted. In behavioral psychology, this is called adaptive conditioning. Your brain observed patterns in your environment. Then it built strategies to help you survive those patterns. If life was unpredictable, staying alert increased your chances of avoiding harm. If conflict appeared suddenly, learning to anticipate tension kept you prepared. Your brain was simply doing its job, protecting you. The problem is that survival strategies do not automatically turn off when circumstances change. The brain keeps running the same program, even in a new environment, like a smoke detector that goes off every time you cook. It was installed to protect the house, but now it reacts to situations that are no longer dangerous, and your nervous system can work the same way. Your brain learned that calm equals the moment before danger. So when calm appears now, it activates the old alarm system, not because it wants to ruin your peace, but because it thinks it is keeping you safe. To understand why this happens, we need to look at the brain's threat detection system. Deep inside the brain sits a small structure called the amygdala. Its job is simple: detect threats. When the amygdala senses potential danger, it sends signals through the nervous system. Your heart rate rises, your attention sharpens, your body prepares to respond. This process happens in milliseconds, often before you consciously understand what is happening. Now imagine the system growing up in an unpredictable environment. The amygdala becomes highly sensitive. It starts noticing even subtle signals: tone of voice, silence in a room, a small change in someone's expression. Over time, the brain begins creating predictive patterns. This is part of what neuroscientists call predictive processing. Your brain constantly tries to guess what will happen next, based on past experiences. If past experiences taught your brain that calm moments often led to problems, your brain starts predicting danger during peaceful situations. Think of it like a security guard who has seen too many emergencies. Even when the building is quiet, the guard keeps checking every door, every hallway, every sound, because the guard has learned that quiet moments can be deceptive. Your brain is that guard, and it doesn't know the environment has changed. This is why calm can feel uncomfortable, which raises an important question. If the brain learned this pattern, can it also learn a new one? The answer is yes, but it requires retraining the system that learned to expect chaos. Here are 4 principles that help retrain the brain's relationship with calm, not by forcing positivity, but by slowly teaching the nervous system that safety is real. 1. Notice the alarm without obeying it. The first step is simple awareness. When calm feels uncomfortable, your brain may interpret that feeling as proof that something is wrong, but the feeling itself is only an alarm signal, not evidence. In cognitive behavioral psychology, this is called cognitive separation. You learn to separate the signal from the story. Instead of thinking, something bad is about to happen, you recognize my brain is running an old prediction. This small shift reduces the authority of the alarm system. Example, you're sitting quietly at home and feel sudden tension. Instead of searching for problem, you simply notice the sensation. Your nervous system begins learning that the alarm can exist without immediate action. 2. Let calm last longer than your brain expects. The second principle is exposure. In behavioral psychology, repeated exposure to safe experiences gradually rewires threat responses. Your brain learns through repetition. If calm moments consistently remain safe, the prediction model slowly updates. Example, instead of filling quiet time with distractions, allow yourself to sit in stillness for a few extra minutes. The brain observes, nothing bad followed the calm. Each repetition weakens the old association. 3. Rebuild trust with your nervous system. People often try to think their way out of anxiety, but the nervous system responds more strongly to physical signals of safety. Slow breathing, relaxed posture, steady environments. These cues activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural calming system. Example, when tension appears during peaceful moments, take slower breaths and soften your shoulders. You are sending your brain a biological message. The environment is safe enough to relax. 4. Redefine what peace means. The final step is psychological reframing. For many people raised in chaos, peace feels unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. Peace is not the absence of danger. It is the presence of stability. You begin practicing a new interpretation. Instead of asking, what is about to go wrong? You ask, what is finally allowed to be calm? Example, when a quiet evening feels strange, you remind yourself, this is what stability feels like. Over time, the brain begins associating calm with recovery rather than threat. You can think of your brain as a weather prediction system. For years, it lived in a storm, so it learned to expect thunder whenever the sky went quiet. Now the environment may have changed, but the forecast system is still running old data. Every calm moment is treated like the pause before lightning. Your task is not to shut down the system, it is simply to update the forecast. And forecasts only change after repeated evidence, repeated calm, repeated safety, repeated proof that the storm is no longer the default climate. Little by little, the brain begins trusting the new pattern. One day, something subtle happens. You notice a quiet moment, and your body does not tense. Your mind does not search for problems. You simply exist inside the calm. No alarm, no anticipation, just stillness. And that moment might feel unfamiliar, but it is not a sign that something is missing. It is a sign that your brain is finally learning something new, that peace is not the moment before danger. Sometimes, peace is just peace.